Hey guys, Kalltorak here. Today, I am bringing you episode 1 of my new series called Off the Meta. I assume this format is going to shift a lot over time, and will possibly become a podcast one day. I'll also be adding a webcam to it soon, probably in the next episode. I just need a video format on my channel for these kind of rants and discussions. I end up going on a lot of rants on my stream, and my chat tells me to post them on YouTube, but I really don't like the idea of just posting unfiltered rant VODs. So yeah, that's what this show is for, and today we are going to talk about the title of the show, which is The Meta. I might upset some people with some of my takes here, but whatever. I think Path of Exile players have a very weird and ultra-elitist way of defining a meta. I've been a part of a lot of gaming communities, and even other ARPGs don't really define meta the same way that PoE players do. Hell, the Riot developers even talk about how they design the game around all the different skill level metas. They understand that to each person, the meta might be slightly different based off how they play the game or their personal skill level. However, in most gaming communities, when someone says meta, they do mean a playstyle that is very successful at the game. In a lot of situations, meta really just means viable, or in competitive games, it means viable for your skill level. A lot of meta discussions really end in silly tier lists where usually I consider anything that's B tier or higher meta. I think tier lists are stupid, but in general, to me, a B tier build in most games can clear all of its content, and a lot of people consider that to be viable and a meta playstyle. For me personally, if I were to find a meta build in Path of Exile 2, it would be a build that can clear to Waystone level 15s with relative ease. You can get your 4th Ascendancy point, and you can knock off some pinnacle content. Anything beyond that, at this point, doesn't really matter for this game. The game just doesn't have a lot of depth, and 0.2 added nothing serious to the endgame. We got a bunch of new toys and balance, with some nice quality of life. But let's be honest, 0.2 is just a build maker's paradise. For everyone else, this patch might be an L, cause yeah, it's the exact same game as before. I don't see the need to grind +4 Arbiter on all my builds, and most people will get all the enjoyment they want out of a build long before pushing that far. A majority of people who play these leagues aren't farming Simulacrum 4 for months on end. That is a very niche and small section of the community that plays this way. This game just doesn't have the depth of PoE 1 yet. If a build can do +1 or +2 Arbiter and can grind Waystone 16s with max boss Atlas passive, I define that as meta and a more than viable build. There are a lot of builds out there that I've played and see others playing that qualify as this. These builds are all meta to me. One of the comments I see the most on my channel is that I am an off-meta creator. I have never once thought that for myself. In fact, most of my builds I've created in patch 0.1 and 0.2 have cleared pinnacle content. If you want to say my builds are unpolished and I suck or that I'm a new build maker, that's one thing. But most of my builds have done reasonably well for me in terms of endgame progress. I lean on my creativity, but almost all of my builds have cleared +2 or +3 content. I have never once felt my builds were really that weird or off meta. What I do think is weird is how a lot of Path of Exile players think about and approach this current game. Please, keep in mind, by the way, that I'm going to be generalizing a lot here. I'm not referring to most of you. When I say Path of Exile player anytime in this rant, we all know the type of person I'm talking about. Usually super blasters. If you ask one of these Path of Exile players what a meta build is, they only want one thing. A build that dominates all content with insane ease, almost no risk of death, with the most cracked and insane clear times, and oftentimes, they want it cheap. If this were going off a tier list, the only meta builds for these players are S++ ranked builds. Just the most cracked of the cracked. Seriously, you see it all the time in comments, on Reddit, or hell from other creators. How many times do you hear that Lightning Spear is the only viable build right now? Which is just stupid as fuck. There are so many viable builds. I can't wrap my head around this mentality for PoE 2. I get why they've developed this playstyle for PoE 1, but this game is not ready for that approach yet. Also, I'm honestly starting to think that some of these players complaining, some are just bad at the game and struggling to adjust to a new ARPG. Again, to clarify, I'm not talking about everyone. There are some huge balance issues with builds right now. If you were one of the people providing valuable feedback on the balance of the game, which is all over the place, I'm not talking to you. It means you probably are actually playing the game. I'm talking about the dweebs that go into every YouTube video or thread and type something about the vision or meaningful combat with no other substance, not even engaging in the content. You'll see it in the comments of many PoE2 creators. It'll either be a one-sentence cringe line about the vision, or it'll be a 50-page paragraph that isn't really responding to the video, just someone over-emotional about an early access game. It could be a silly YouTube short of me one-shotting a low-level campaign boss, and it'll get massive walls of text flaming GGG for making the game and flaming me for enjoying it. It is just weird and cringe. Seriously, go read through Try's YouTube section of his most recent video. These are some of the most unhinged dweebs on the planet. I call them dweebs because they're really harmless, but my god, these guys are the biggest divas of any community I have ever seen. Anyways, back to what I mean when I say that some of these players are just bad. ARPGs, they aren't mechanically difficult games. Even PoE2. Most players can full clear an ARPG while having no mechanical ability at all. Seriously, watch my content, I suck, and I can clear PoE2 content with the dumbest builds. There are a few players that come to mind, like Ben. When I watch his gameplay, he seems like a mechanically gifted player, but there are very few others like that. In general, you don't need mechanical skill for ARPGs. Most players, myself included, remove all difficulty from ARPGs via our builds. Build creating is most of the complexity in these games. And ultimately, we want to be unkillable and eat every mechanic in the face and one-shot everything before it can kill us. The way that 98% of us play ARPGs is chasing a fantasy of becoming an ultimate god by the end. And how you do that is through knowledge and understanding of game mechanics. You can give a stupid scab like Elon Musk a Jungroan build, and he could full clear the game easily. In ARPGs, knowledge is powerful, and I believe a lot of these PoE1 players have forgotten that. I think one of my favorite Path of Exile players is Sir Gog. I can learn something from Sir Gog and immediately apply it to my own gameplay. Versus other games, right? Like FPS and MOBAs, where I could watch Faker play it all day, but I won't be able to implement how he plays into my game mechanically. Just because I can learn something from Sir Gog, though, doesn't mean I am as smart or as good as Sir Gog. A lot of these people think that just because they learn something from a player like Fubgun, they are just as good or as smart as him when it comes to navigating, build crafting, or new metas. They've had this cushion of knowledge from 10 years of playing PoE1 that made navigating every PoE1 season brain dead easy for them, but is making navigating PoE2 way more frustrating. Just try to keep that in mind, that while yes, there are a load of balance problems, a lot of this is just us not knowing how to play the game. Every day, new mechanics and new metas evolve. My Thorns Bira build is my favorite build of the season, but I could not have predicted it coming if it wasn't for Cooler Peon introducing the mechanic to us through his video. In these games, you have to be able to play and adjust to an active meta, but especially in an early access game, when the balance is just so volatile, it is going to be a difficult learning process for everyone. Just try to keep this in mind, that while yes, there are loads of balance problems, a lot of this is just us not knowing how to play the game. It's massive, with so many mechanics, and if you think your ARPG knowledge from PoE1 is going to instantly translate to this game with zero learning curve, you've got quite the ego. The game has loads of balance problems, but the level of crying I see about the lack of depth in the meta is insane. There might only be 1 or 2 S++ builds, but there are plenty of fantastic A-tier builds right now that can clear most Pinnacle content with ease. My point is that the way people approach the game and meta is peak silly. I come from WoW, and we are losers who love to min-max the fun out of games, but PoE players somehow are putting WoW players to shame. They are literally only capable of seeing the game through a single lens, and you shouldn't be looking at PoE2 like that at all right now. We have no endgame here. We know GGG is overhauling it. It's missing layers and layers of depth, with missing layers and layers of crafting to help support it. The game is just bones right now, and you guys are attempting to break the most fragile part of its system. There are plenty of builds that the game is enjoyable with, and you could be spending time trying these A tier builds to help provide GGG with feedback to get it up to S tier. But when all you do is stare at PoE Ninja all day and cry about all the other sweatlords like yourself only playing Lightning Spear, I don't have much sympathy for you. We all want this game to be great, but I don't think some of you guys are ready for an actual early access game. Not by the way you talk. There are plenty of builds out there in the A or B tier range that GGG is desperate for your feedback on. If you want to improve the game, that's the best approach. Check out videos from Off Meta Mike. I was a big fan of Hexblast in 0.1, and it's just in an awful spot right now. His content is speaking directly to GGG, providing feedback that's not only good, but actually digestible. Instead of making 10 videos about how Lightning Spear is ruining the meta, or screaming in the devs' faces about how everyone hates the game right now, he is providing feedback on the build he loves doing. That way, going into 0.3 and beyond, the devs have easy to reference feedback without having to pour through a sea of cringelords on Reddit. We need a lot more of this from creators now. I think these specific blasters have spent too long playing PoE 1's incredible endgame, and are convinced that the only way they can provide feedback is by trying to play the game just like PoE 1. But this game is truly an early access game. It ain't a fake early access game like most of these companies use for marketing or to scam people out of easy money. This game is a stinky turd at times, and the state of 0.2 shows how early access it really is. This patch launch was rough, but it can't be easy for GGG to sift through all of the shit feedback out there. We got a little off topic there, but to pivot back. To me, the meta is much more than all of this. It's not just the builds at the tippity top, because that's really only just a small fraction of the player base. Everyone wants to succeed at the game for sure, but the level of success and the standard of quality you guys hold yourself to is the problem. When I think about the meta, I don't think about the minority of the players at the top of the ladder. I think about the majority of players actually playing the game closer to how I play. I think it's why a channel like mine is having so much success. I have no ARPG content background, and my builds are unpolished. My guides often just have incorrect or horribly min-max skill pathing. People don't care, because they are just tired of seeing everyone print the same blaster build over and over, and get to see the level of enjoyment I am having, but most importantly, I am playing the game in a style that resonates with them. They see that I'm trying my best to make a build go as far as possible, but having fun along the way. Like I said, I get ranty. I don't even remember how we got here. My main point is, given the success of my channel, someone who has no foothold in the ARPG scene making these off-meta builds, why is my content getting so much traction? If my builds were really that much of a novelty, I would fade off fast, right? Maybe in time, a creator like me will fall into obscurity. Or is it possible that these so-called off-meta builds are closer to how a majority of the player base actually plays? Nah, we weird as fuck, boys.